Hey, welcome everyone. This is the ComicBase live stream. I'm your host, Pete Bickford. And for the next hour or so, give or take, we'll be talking about Q&A with ComicBase 2024 in particular, ComicBase in general. And I'm getting a weird hissing in my earphone. I hope that's not on the stream. But anyway, guys, hope everyone's doing well out there. Please, if you have questions for the Q&A, please post them into the chat at ComicBase TV, and I will hit as many of these as I possibly can. Thank you for everyone who's sending in questions ahead of time. I'm getting a thumbs up saying that sound looks like it's okay. So I think we're all right. Our mod is in the house here, Mr. Gregory Hecht. Richard Scott apparently just put in the chat just so you won't be able to make it live. So if you're watching this on the replay, welcome, Richard. Anyway, Oro, hi from Minneapolis, and hey, it looks like some big love for the new history button in 2024. We'll talk a little bit about that later on. Mike Beam from Vancouver. I think it's Brian Price out there. It looks like everyone's weather is getting better. Robbie is out here. Andre, we got Richard says things worked out differently. Here I am. Welcome everyone, Richard. Got Ed out here from Canada. Jet City Comics in the house and so forth. Anyway, thank you. Welcome everyone. So I got a couple of announcements. Brian McClure just joined us. A couple of announcements, and then we'll get down to business. So first announcement is we're going to be doing our ComicBase After Dark show tomorrow night. I couldn't post it earlier because Rumble doesn't let you post any live stream more than 24 hours in advance. I found that out the hard way. I tried to get ahead of things and schedule this show right now for Rumble, and the furthest it would let me put it out was like 12:35 p.m. Because I was doing this yesterday, and I thought, well, no problem. I'll just, I'll get in the morning. I'll just move the date backward if you won't let me have 24 hours. It's like, no, you have to create a whole new live stream. It's like, all right, thanks, Rumble. A few little glitches you want to work out with the live stream. You'll get there in the end. You've come a long way. But anyway, so ComicBase After Dark is our speakeasy show. It's where we're over on Rumble, so we can say things that will get us completely censored in 2 seconds flat on YouTube. And honestly, it's just a hangout. And you guys are all invited to be part of the show. If you would like an invite to join the live stream directly, please send me a note, and I'll put my name up here, pbickford at human-computing.com. And I'll send you the behind the scenes link on it. We'll take as many people as we can get in and rotate people after that. The whole idea is grab a libation of your preferred thing, and for a couple hours we just hang out. It's like, imagine we're just at the comic shop after dark, and we can talk about whatever's on people's minds, and certainly we want to talk about the new release and things that made it in, things that didn't make it in, which we wish had made in, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's this kind of stuff that we really can't get into at this main live stream. So if you'd like to join us, please send me a note. I'll put that up one more time. And if you just want to lurk, we'll post a public viewable link on the whole thing on the ComicBase website later on. All right, well, that's the main thing I want to say about that. All right, updates. So by the way, this has been a great release for us because it's been a whole week since we shipped, and we haven't had to do even one little tweaky program bug fix update to the thing so far. So we are so happy about that, and thank you to all the testers who made that a reality. I mean, we're always in a state of pretty much constant development on the whole thing, but it's been a remarkably smooth release to ComicBase 2024, and thank you to everyone who made that possible. So some things that we did do, on the other hand, that aren't program related directly, but related to ComicBase 2024, the ecosystem. The archive picture count, by popular request, is now up on the website. So if you go to comicbase.com, you guys are probably used to looking in this upper right-hand corner here, which let me go ahead and zoom in. And we've got the ComicBase info over here. And now, yes, thank you to Rob Weinberg for suggesting it. But yes, now in addition to everything else that tells you about what's going on with the release, we also have the current, up to the minute count of how many pictures are in the archive edition, which at the moment stands at 995,877. It's undoubtedly going up tonight because we're pushing our content update for the week tonight. But that is now, easily viewable on the website itself. So thank you to the folks who suggested that one. Other things that are going on. By the way, speaking of the archive edition upgrades are currently $20 off list price. So if you are holding on to the Pro, Express, or frankly, if you just need to renew, good time to grab yourself a savings on that one. It's not earth-shattering, but $20 is $20 is the, is, I think it was Geddy Lee on one of the old, Second City records. If you guys remember the song Take Off, it's like, "Hey, man, $10 is $10." That's the guy I'm just, singing on the song. Anyway, um, that being moving on from there, because that's the most dated reference I will make this entire show. Preliminary quick start pictures. So I got a request from Andre, who said, "Hey, look, man, you're pushing the quick start pictures, understandably so, because being able to download, one file with 6.5, 7 gigs worth of stuff and have all the pictures at my hands beats downloading a million files with 90 gigs of stuff to get the same pictures. But hey, because he's doing his ComicBase cover catalog, he wants, I presume, to have access to a way to filter out the preliminary images. The preliminary images are the ones that publishers put out in the catalogs and send us before the real comic has hit the streets. And sometimes, if the real comic is really obscure and you have to buy 500 copies of something in order to get one, it takes a while for us to get a picture for the real image. So the preliminary image can hang out in the collection for a little bit. But he wanted to have a way of separating out the preliminary images even from the quick starts, which I'm happy to say, as of about 2 hours ago, there is now a way to do. So now we have now rigged it, and we have updated, by the way, all the quick start images, which are the ones where when you first install the program and you say, "Hey, we would like to install the pictures now," those are the images that come down for you. Those now all come, if they are a preliminary image, they all come tagged with a comment in the picture file itself, which says preliminary image. So if you want to then go and find all of them, filter them out, delete them, whatever you want to do with them, if you just do a Windows search for comment : quote preliminary image, and let me go ahead and demonstrate that over here, and you can pull them out quite easily. So let me switch my computer over to the demo machine. And by the way, this is, I got kind of a whole, got a bit of a class in Windows searching this week. So let me get out of it. Come on, mouse control, you can do it. Sorry, it's still working on something over there. Okay, let me go to it a different way, because I tried to get a lot of stuff done before the show and I didn't get it all done. So, all right, let me go over to my OneDrive, to my pictures on this one. Let's see, users. Public. This is fascinating, I know. All right, so typically when you install pictures, they go into the public documents human computing folder, right in your pictures folder. That's the default location. Well, one thing you can do if you want to search for particular things, and this is just a Windows search trick, really. You can search by things like parts of file names. So I wanted to find Batman stuff, I could just type Batman. But you also can look for comments. So, for instance, if let's have a look at one of them in particular. Let's go to First Second and look at Andre the Giant Life and Legend, because this is one that I know is a preliminary image. So if you look at this guy and I right click on it and I choose Properties, you'll now see under Details that right there he'll have a comment this preliminary image, and that's baked right into the file. So anyway, if I want to find all the comics or all the things that are preliminary images, all I got to do is come on over here. Let me back out a couple folders, so I'm searching all of the pictures. If I say comment : and I got to put this in quotes, preliminary image, you'll notice this basically as fast as I can type, it's going to pull, here's all the preliminary images that are in that entire picture folder. So anyway, happy to announce that one for the, for that. It's probably not something that a lot of people care about, but if you do care about it, it's a quick way to find those. Those are now in the quick start pictures as of right now, as in they weren't there 2 hours ago, but if you were installing the program right now, you'll have them there. So hopefully that helps. All right, so going back to things, let's see, anything else I can catch up on? No, we are good. Okay, and then one last big item from last time I didn't get around to. I really meant to, but I had a lot I was talking about with a new release, and that is, when you first launch the program, you might have noticed it says updating the publisher for, and then it has about 2,000 titles it's going to quickly circulate through. And as it's doing it, it also moves pictures and things like that. And what's doing in particular is we took the decision right when we launched ComicBase 2024 that was the right time to finally admit that we did not choose the right name when a little company called Idea and Design Works launched about 20 years ago, and its first couple of issues refer to themselves as, they're called IDW sometimes, but, they signed as Idea Plus Design Works on the first couple issues. We saw this and said, okay, clearly they're Idea Plus Design Works, and that's how we wrote them out. And then when they later shortened things up to IDW, we thought, well, we've already kind of committed to this Idea Plus Design Works thing, and we kept that clunky, name for the publisher. Who knew that they'd stick around? And now 2,000 titles later, yes, we decided now is the time to finally bite the bullet and officially change that one over. We did as part of a content update, but in order to ease things out, we also made it so when you were going to be downloading ComicBase 2024, which everyone was going to have that was going to be getting the content update that week, we also make it so that we automatically take your existing stuff and move it to the we rename the titles for you automatically. We move your pictures to the right places and so forth. And that's what that one kind of scrub through of your database the first time you use ComicBase 2024. That's what that's doing, is it's checking if there's any Idea Plus Design Work stuff that needs to be moved into IDW as a folder. So if you got that done, I meant to mention that was what was going on with that one, but at least we took care of it, and it's not, it saves you a lot of trouble of doing it manually. And finally, we get to be on the right side of history on this one or something. So anyway, that's what that's all about. Okay, so that is all I've got there, and now I just have a long list of questions from users. If I want to encourage folks, if you have your own questions you'd like them to be answered, particularly about ComicBase 2024, please post them in the chat. But in the meantime, I will get on to things now. First question up here, and if I was really clever, I'd have written down the names of the people who submitted these, but I did not. Basically, it came down to he's kept up with the cover downloading with his ComicBase 2023. Do I need to download all the new pictures, or are the new pictures better than what I've got? Great question. The short answer is no. There's really no harm. If you have been faithfully downloading each week's covers, then you've already been getting everything. If you start out with everything and you update everything every week, then you're in the same place we are, coming in clean into ComicBase 2024. So there's nothing in the new picture set that's any different than what you've already got as far as that goes. The only proviso with that I would maybe suggest is if you think you might have skipped a week or two, then it might be worth downloading the Quick Start pictures just to blast in the pictures for anything that you think you might have missed. So it doesn't hurt if you want to do that, but it's certainly not required. As far as whether the new pictures are better quality than the ones you've got, no, you've been getting the best quality all along. The gating factor for us with pictures has actually, for a number of years now, 3-4 years at least, been that it's easier for us to push a high quality picture over the internet than it is to squish it onto even a Blu-ray. So let me just go ahead and hit my mic there as I talk with my hands. Always a good habit. So yeah, it's when we first did the Blu-ray editions of ComicBase, it's like, oh hey, we can almost take the entire picture library and just copy it, with no compression whatsoever onto the Blu-ray. That was great, and that was also 10 years ago. Ever since then, we've gone from Blu-ray to dual layer Blu-ray to two dual layer Blu-ray discs. So we're talking about 90 gigs of data, but our picture library in its raw form is like 630 gigabytes at the moment. So we actually have to squish those down to some extent in order to fit them onto even a full set of Blu-ray disc images. Now, we don't have to squish them particularly hard, but we don't have to squish them barely at all if we're kicking them up over to you over the internet, and assuming that you have a decent internet connection. So typically we will push things over the internet at a 50% quality, which means that they look just freaking terrific. I mean, they're maybe not archival level, but they look great. There's no any kind of JPEG artifacting or anything like that you would ever see with the naked eye and so forth. And that's how we can do it if you're downloading over the internet. So when we've been delivering images, that's typically how we go about them. And that's honestly how I would suggest people get pictures in general today. If I were installing ComicBase on a new computer, what I would do personally, because I don't want to install, hundreds and hundreds of gigabytes of stuff for especially images I don't care about, is I would just let ComicBase do its default thing, which is to download the quick start pictures. It'll also install higher resolution, and larger pictures automatically of all the number ones. But the second I click on anything in the program, and I showed this last week, but oh darn it, sorry, you know what, I'm gonna stop this one because I don't need to wait for it. I was installing the new quick start pictures on the demo machine over here. I wanted to update things for the screensaver, but I don't have the time. But anyway, so if I say we're going on Alien here, if I look at issue number 1, so there's the the number 1, and it was sitting there ahead of time. Issue number 2, on the other hand, the only picture on there is actually this little grid picture, but you wouldn't know it because the second I click on it, that quickly, it has downloaded and displayed the full version, which, I mean, maybe if I could watch it frames on a camera, there might have been one less frame required to display the number 1 that was already there than the number 2 that wasn't there. But I mean, it's literally that on a decent internet connection, it's that small a difference. So what I would do is go ahead and just install the quick start pictures, let it pull down the high res pictures of the pictures as it goes, and then you've got really the best use of your own disk space, and you also get the highest quality. That's how I do it now. But that being said, circling back to the original question, if you've been using the picture downloading in ComicBase 2023 all along, you don't need to do a thing at all. You've already got what you want. So don't sweat it unless you really just feel like doing a reset. All right, so let's see here. Okay, and Andre says he's going to give a shot at the quick start. So yeah, hope that works out for you. Okay, moving on. Next question someone had was, this is actually a pretty popular one. This is, I have 2 copies of the same comic in different grades. Do I need to have them in separate databases? And unfortunately, I asked this one. It was like asking for a friend is the way this one came in. And the friend apparently had actually created an entirely different database to store his second copies of things, and was keeping the physical organization that was involved with this one sounds really elaborate. And I said, you could just do it this other way. And it's like, oh, well, let's show how that works. So let's say I've got a copy of Aliens over here. Let's go and zoom in a little bit. And say for issue number 1, say I've got 1 copy in near mint, right? But then I look in another box and say, I've got another copy of it that's in very fine, and I want to track them separately. I don't need to open a second database. I don't need to do anything elaborate. He was doing an incredibly elaborate use of one of the custom fields for this thing. You don't need to do anything like that. There's a command in the program called duplicate. So if I highlight the line just by clicking the far left over here, and I just go down and I say duplicate or Control D, it's going to pull up that issue in all its glory. Let me go and zoom out just slightly. And all I got to do is I say, all right, well, for the second one, how's it different? And I would say, well, all right, yeah, for that one, it's not near mint condition. It's in, say, very fine condition, right? And so it'll set the selling price and so forth. I can put whatever notes I want, bought from Bob, comic guy, etc. And then I can get down here, zoom out so it's easier for me to move around, hit save, and then you'll see right next to each other, here's my near mint copy, here's my very fine copy, and I've got distinct notes, I've got distinct item description, whatever else I want to say about them, and they can appear as separate lines. That's all you need to do. You don't need to do anything elaborate. You don't need to again have crazy schemes with custom fields or multiple databases. Just duplicate as your friend on that one. All right, so I think that one covers that one. Let's move on to the next. How long should it take to download the pictures? This one came up a couple times. One person just asked straight up, and the other person, we got one of our fairly rare tech calls on ComicBase 2024. I mean, usually when you launch a new version, usually there's a ton of the phones will ring a lot around here, if only because it's we haven't talked to certain people, or they've heard the announcement, they're upgrading for the first time in a while, and so everyone has their kind of getting started questions that come up. But this one came up unfortunately because a gentleman was having a really hard time downloading the new pictures. So we looked into it. And in this particular case, it came down to probably a combination of antivirus software, but also, in his case, an extremely slow internet connection. So let's answer your basic question, which is how long should it take to download the pictures? So when you first go and install it, the pictures that you install right at the top are it's about a 3 GB file is what you're downloading, that first one where it says it's downloading the title pictures. It'll actually download two if you and this is if you're using the Pro edition, it's only going to download the first of those, which is the title pictures. It's the number one issues. If you have any of the archive editions, it's going to download a second file, which is the quick start versions of all 995,000 pictures. Now they're very small pictures, so they download very quickly, and they're all in one big hunk, and so it's not that massive a file. But it's about 3 GB for Pro, and for the start of the archive guys, that's the speed of that one, and then it's about 6, I believe, gigabytes. And it depends on whether you're downloading for comics, for books, for magazines, for newspapers, all of the above, and so forth. Because it only pulls down the parts you need. So if I say, hey, I want to track comics and nothing but comics, it'll only download the comic part of that archive for the quick start. But count on that you're going to be downloading about another 6 GB worth of data to get all the quick start pictures in there. So hey, pretty sweet. You get at that point you've got usable quality images for a million pictures, and you did it in 9 GB to start. That's a pretty good trick, all things considered. But there are still some ways that you can make this intolerable, and one of them is if you have antivirus software or a firewall that's blocking traffic to or to things that end in .7z, which is a 7-zip file, which is the way these come down. If you have firewall software that's trying to inspect every packet as it goes through, for these large files, that could slow up the works quite a bit. And certainly, if you have security software that, as it decompresses a million files, if it's then trying to virus check, and if it's not particularly fast at virus checking all million files, that also can take a while. But you'll see that in the install phase of things. If you're having trouble just at the download phase of things, then it probably is going to be a question of either your network speed or your firewall, if it doesn't seem like it's moving. Let's look at those in turn, and we'll talk about them just a little bit here, and then we'll go on to the next one. So one tool that you want to use just in general when you're trying to figure out this stuff is there's a site called speedtest.net, which is really, really, really useful. So let's jump over to it now. Speedtest.net, and I forget who runs this one. Don't know. Anyway, but it figures out who my IP guy is. It figures out what the nearest place it could ping is, and then it's going to go and do a quick little test of my connection. Yes, I would like you to know where I am because I want you to pick something out of the whole thing. All right, so with me doing a live stream, with everything else going on this particular server, we're still managing to pull down 740 megabits down this connection right now. Now, and this, by the way, is on the demo computer, and we're putting up about 900 megabits down here. So, I got a decent pipe. This is typical of a fiber connection. But if you've got a cable connection or anything like that, very typical to see speeds that are anywhere from 50 to 500 megabits. I mean, depending on what you're paying for. Anyway, so this isn't too bad. And so you can look at these numbers, look at the download speed you've got there, and then you look at the size of the thing you're downloading, and you can use a download time calculator. Here's one here, omnicalculator.com, which great site to go if you just want calculators for weird things. But you can sit down there and say, all right, so I'm going to pull down a file that is 3,000 megabytes, and my download speed is going to be 750, and that's not megabits, it's megabytes per second. If I can find the right thing over here. Not yottabytes. Oh, good Lord. I don't want to. Megabytes. There we are. Geez, that took a second. All right. And so, no, I want it to go. All right. So I am pulling it down at 750 megabytes. I'm sorry. Doing this wrong, guys. Pay no attention to the idiot behind here. So 3,000 megabytes. I think I'm pulling down at 750 megabits. Let me make sure that yes, that's megabits per second. So if you guys didn't know what this was, when you're trying to figure out whether it's megabytes or megabits, it all is about whether that B is capitalized or not. If it's not capitalized, you're talking bits. If it is capitalized, you're talking bytes. What's a bit versus a byte? A byte has 8 bits in it. Really, 10 is kind of how you guesstimate it because of parity bits and food that gets into the stream trying to work with things. But anyway, so let's put in the proper measurements on here, and then we'll get a proper result. So if I am downloading a 3,000 megabyte file and I'm putting it down at 750 megabits, it's going to take me about 32 seconds to download all the pictures that we're going on for the initial slug of things. And if I'm going to pull down all the others, that's going to take another 1 minute and 4 seconds. So, hey, not too bad. 90 seconds, give or take, and I can download all the pictures. And then it takes several more minutes to install them. But, that's pretty darn decent if you've got a decent pipe going on. Unfortunately, this gentleman did not have a decent pipe. We pulled up speedtest.net on his connection, and he was, the file sizes that he's downloading were the same. Unfortunately, his connection, when it was working, I don't know what they sold him, but when you actually looked at speed test, it was pulling down 16 megabits per second, which is not great, which means just the first part of it was going to take him 25 minutes to download just the first set of pictures. And unfortunately, when it's in the middle of a download like that, it doesn't particularly give any status, which is something that I think we might need to look into a way of faking our way around. But the raw windows of the whole thing doesn't. It just kind of says, "I'll tell you when I'm done." It doesn't give you anything saying I'm 6% done, 7% done, 8% done. There are some extraordinary things we can do by monitoring, file sizes of temp things and so forth, where we could approximate a real idea of what the picture is, but it's very, very difficult to get like an actual percentage of it when we're using. It's called an HTTP GET transaction. Unfortunately, in Windows, it's kind of an all or nothing. It's just I'll tell you when the file's done. Anyway. But and so he was having a bit of trouble. But that's kind of the extreme range of things, I'd say, if you're trying to download things. I'd say much more typically for people who are downloading on the sort of thing, much more usual to see 100 megabit downloads and so forth when they're talking 4 minutes maybe to download the pictures. But if you have if you have just terrible connectivity, you're back in the beyond, then if you can't have a way of getting a better internet connection, that actually would be a case where maybe you want to order it on disk and install it that way. But it is what it is. But anyway, that is the answer to that question, and hopefully that was helpful. All right, let me see here. Okay, Andre says, can I download the quick start pictures with a command? Yes, I believe you can. Let's look at that. All right, let me bounce over to the appropriate camera. Okay, there we have. So if you've already got the pictures installed and you go to the file tools and you go to manage pictures and movies, there is a couple of commands down here, and the one you're looking for is reinstall pictures. At which point it will go ahead and pull them down from our site and pull the latest quick start on the whole thing. You also can choose install from disk if you happen to have disk images laying around, or if you've downloaded the extended ones from the other section of your downloads. But in general, if you just click reinstall pictures, it'll download the latest quick start pictures, and it'll take it from there. All right. Finally, a legitimate live question for ComicBase 2024. Excellent. Thank you, everyone. Keep it going. All right. Steve Dazinger points out, regarding duplicating issues, FYI, it will use the same cover scan for both duplicate issues. That is true because they both have the same item number. It's not. We don't have a facility in ComicBase right now to allow you to have multiple pictures for the same item. That's not something the program supports right now. Although be interesting if that turns into a need that people have. If so, usually the best way is if you have a really good reason why you need that. Just tell me what it is exactly and what's your exact use case. And if we think that that's not entirely unique to you, then usually we see if we can't make something like that happen. All right. Ken Fikes joining us. Hey, how do y'all? Love the new Archangel. Excellent. I'm glad people are liking it. I mean, again, I'm shocked by what a smooth release this one has been. I mean, it's usually we release these things and I'm usually like a scared cat in a room full of rocking chairs for the first hour or two, and I'm usually a little relieved when someone finds something terrible that happened, because it's like, I knew it would happen, because my cynical old soul says, yeah, it's too good to be true. And then you're a little happy when something a little bit bad happens that you have to fix. But this one's actually been pretty darn smooth. All right, so anyway, daring fate with that one, but I'm just going to push on. All right, so what are unknown items when I download, and what can I do about them? All right, so let's go to that one. Let's pull up a download report, which I think I had stacked up ahead of time. Yes, this one came up. Let's go ahead and show it. And this one came up right when I downloaded our demo database right beforehand. So when you get to the end of an update, you might see, and of course I closed the update screen because that would have been helpful. When you go and you say check for updates, and you download a new thing. I'm not going to make you wait through the whole thing. But when you go through the whole thing and you download an update, it will tell you the results at the end. Okay, yeah, here we are. Okay, it says, yeah, you're current and so forth. This is what the collection's worth. But there's this little blue thing over here. It says, hey, there are a couple of unrecognized items. Do you want to look at them? And if you view them, you'll say, okay, well, here are, and then the answer honestly is right in the text at the top. It's just like, here's some things that exist in your database, but they aren't part of our current master database. So what does that even mean? Well, it means you've got some stuff that we don't have. Now it could be that you just have absolutely new and unique stuff. Sometimes people use ComicBase even to track things that aren't even comic books. So there's one university that apparently uses us to track their bug collection, like insects. And so I would imagine that we don't have any of your stuff. But anyway, but for most people, what's happened is you've added a title that either it's brand new to you or you've named it, and it's the name isn't exactly the same as the name we used, and so we don't recognize it. And so we just want to point that out to you, because in general the answer is going to be that it probably does exist under a different name, and so it's useful to be able to map those things up. So we're basically saying, yeah, look, check a couple of things. First thing you want to check is say, look, make sure they're not listed under a different name. And if you do find them, then you can transfer them to the title that they belong under. And in a couple times, and this is certainly true in particular since we started having multiple types of media in ComicBase. So since we started being able to break out the books and the magazines separately, once upon a time, we had to lump those all in as if they were comic books. And so you might have old records in your database which are of things that say Marvel previews, which it's comic size, but it's not a comic because it has no comic stories in it. So we list that one under magazines these days. If you still have it listed as a comic, then what you'll want to do is you'll want to change its media type so that it's listed under its proper entry, which does exist already, which is as a comic book. And the instructions at the top of this report give you all the details of exactly how to do that. Basically, you go select the items in question, and you either transfer them to the right title or you make them be the right media type, and that will handle those things. And then the final case could be is that, or you could have something that's absolutely unique that we just haven't seen before. You might have a variant that only appeared at some local convention that we had never seen. Or maybe you've got a small press comic book that never really got very wide distribution. Or maybe you've just got that weird, rare thing that somehow slipped through the cracks. It does happen. In which case, please add it to your copy, or if it's added already, just click on it, right click and say submit new or corrected data, and tell us. That way we can add it to the main database. You'll no longer get that treated as an unrecognized item. We can get it priced out and start figuring out the market value of this one, and that'll update as you go. And everyone else benefits because they then get to have more information about new things in their databases. So give that a go. But that's what the unrecognized item report is about. Now in this particular case, this is the demo database that we've been working with, and you'll notice there's a handful of titles, and this is actually, I'm going to say, intentional, folks. I told you that we had all our Idea plus DesignWorks titles that were in your database. We moved them all over to be under publisher IDW, and we moved the pictures automatically. One thing we didn't do automatically, partly because it's not necessarily true that you'll even have these titles in your collection. They're a very, very small percent of the titles that IDW published over the years. But the titles that had the words Idea plus Design Works in the title name itself, we no longer list them that way. We list them as parenthesis IDW. And so if you had any of these in your collection, and I had a couple of these in my collection, you should actually go find your inventory under these wrong ones over here and then transfer them to the new title. And you'll see that there's a new title over there, which is Fallen Angel parenthesis IDW. But because it involved moving your inventory around, we didn't want to take any chances on this one by doing it ourselves. Now, you can leave them where they are. It's not going to hurt anything, but moving them where they should be, number one, it gets rid of an annoying message for you, but also, again, it keeps them in sync with new pricing and new data as they come up. So it's a good thing to do. I'll bet you this one over here we lost because we try not to use bad words and things, and so it would have been SHT asterisk T kicker. So that one, you gotta love publishers. And so anyway, that's what that's about. Okay, moving on. Let me go back to the chat here, make sure I'm not blowing people off as we go. Andre says, 2 pictures for books for the cover and the text at the back of the book would be a very good thing added. Yeah, we'll look into it. It's we have the ability right now to associate multiple media with a particular issue. So, for instance, you guys might know that you can have MP3s and MP4s, AVIs, all sorts of PDFs, CBRs, which digital comic books of various types. You can, if you drag them onto the particular issue in question, they're named the same as the issue, that it'll actually automatically link the digital media to the issue in question. So in that case, for instance, if you have an audio book or a movie or a film clip or a digital version of a comic book, you can link that stuff to a comic as you go, and it will take care of that. I believe, and gosh, I hate to say this, but it's been so long, I'd have to double check this. I believe if you create a folder for those ones within the title, you can even have multiple types of media, and it will give you a drop down. But I'd have to double check that because it's been so long it hasn't come up. But yeah, would it be useful to have multiple pictures for the same comic book? Maybe. Like I say, if someone has a compelling use case for it and just can elucidate it, and also if throw it on the forums and give us an impression that it's something that more than one or two people would ever use, then typically we're quite accommodating of things that make sense. All right, let's see here. Robbie Weinberg says, if for some reason you want to, can you reinstall a full-size pictures, not just reinstall the quick start pictures? You could. The way you would do that is you would go to the other downloads. So when you're downloading your program, under the registration section of comicbase.com, there's a little green download arrow with your downloads on it. If you it has recommended downloads in the first tab. If you click over to the second tab, which is the other downloads, then it will have the full disk images. It's what would have been on the physical disk, and so you can download from there as well. Which point you would download all of those, and then you'd say install from disk, and then it would take it from there, and you can install from that. That being said, if you're looking for the best quality, I guess if you're looking for the best average quality for things, then that maybe makes some kind of sense. But if you're looking for the best quality of images you really look at, you're actually better off downloading the quick starts and letting ComicBase automatically upgrade as it goes anything that you actually interact with. Because again, the things that we download ad hoc as you are using the program aren't limited by the size restrictions that would have been on the physical medium, whether it be archive or Blu-ray. And so we can actually serve up a bit, better quality and usually larger images, depending on if you're downloading them bit by bit as opposed to us having to ram them all onto a disk, where we keep on having more pictures every year, but disks keep holding the same amount of space every year. And so we wind up having to compress the images harder and harder to get them on. And I got to say, I think I can see the end of the road for that process. It's just as we as we've gone through ComicBase history, the product mix between people who'd be buying things physically and who would just download it switched. 5 years ago, handful of people would download things. Usually Express and Pro, and free users would download things, and then about half as many people would buy them in physical copies. That's even just 5 years ago. Today, virtually nobody buys a physical copy of Express or Pro. I mean, it's when we ship a real one, we're like, wow, we actually shipped a disc for that. It's because they're small downloads, and it's hardly worth getting. The archive, which used to be, I mean, I used to really feel like it's a real symbol of quality that hey, this thing comes on DVD. This thing holds a lot of information. Again, 10, 12 years ago, absolutely true. I mean, DVD was a lot of stuff. It was I mean, you picture the world of 10, 12 years ago, that was the gold standard, for what you got going on. Then that became one DVD, two DVDs, and went from single to double layer, 3 DVDs, 4 DVDs. At some point we said, look, this is crazy. You can't ask people to install a stack of DVDs to get the program going. And so we kind of capped it at 4, but we kept on having more pictures from year to year. And so the only way to get them to fit was to, again, dial up the compression a little bit more, which you can dial up to a scary extent, but it passed the point where you can easily see the flaws in it a while ago. The 4K version of ComicBase, formerly known as the Blu-ray, there you've got a lot more space to play with, because you're talking about two dual layer Blu-ray discs. But even there, in order to deliver the images at the resolutions that we're talking about, you still, I mean, there's some pretty serious compression artifacts that you can see if you're installing from the disk that you don't see if you've got the downloaded version. So I'd say anyone looking for quality on these ones, as much as we'd like to, we can't ship you, 20, 30, DVDs. I mean, it's not practical, and likewise it's not practical for us to say, oh yeah, please download 630 gigabytes of high-res Blu-ray image. It's just not something that we can offer, but we can give it to you bit by bit as you need it for the things you want. That we can make happen, and so I would certainly say, for people who are looking for the best experience, all things considered, my bet would be on going with the quick start, and then just use the program. And as you use the program, anything that you happen to actually care about will be in the best possible quality that you could ever get. All right, so let's move on. Let's see what else we got going on here. Okay. Oh, great. Thank you, Richard. Did you? Oh, excellent. Richard, you actually gave me the perfect segue, because the very next question someone had asked was exactly the same question. So can the history button be available after closing and reopening the program? And the question that someone sent in is, how long does the history button apply? The history button, very intentionally, is, and let's go ahead and point at what the history button, let's say what we're even talking about here. So let's bounce over to the other computer. Let me move my mouse over there so I can actually control it. Yeah, no, just go ahead and close all. Okay, excellent. So a brand new addition to ComicBase, and let me go to a couple different things so you can see what it is this new history button up in the upper right-hand corner here. So when you click on it, it gives you the last several searches that you've done. So if I were to say things like, I don't know, let's find, well, let's see, let's click on our first guy over here. Randy Stradley wrote the first issue of the Aliens magazine. So let's go ahead and find some Randy Stradley issues. Honestly, I'm just doing the search just to search. Come on, baby. Okay, so there we are. 234 books from Randy Stradley, and let's go ahead and bounce over there. Let's click on one or the other. So okay, all right. So now I can go here, and let's say I want to go back to that search of Randy Stradley. You'll see down here on their history, I can see comic books written by Randy Stradley, and if I want to, there's also back and forward buttons. So if I was, going back here to Aliens Volume 2 and I wanted to go backward, I can also hit Control left bracket or Control right bracket to go forward and back in time from wherever that checkbox is. Very, very useful, especially if I've done a mix of title and issue-based searches. So for instance, let's do a search for every title we've got in the database from Dark Horse Comics, all 2,731 of them. Good grief. And let's go ahead and bounce over to one, 3-story, The Secrets of Giant Man, and then say, oh, no, I wanted to go back to that Randy Stradley stuff. Here, you see that we can very easily go back in time to any of those previous searches. And I think we buffer like the last, it's either 40 or 50 searches. Now, the limits on this, and these are very intentional limits. They do not, if I open a new database, it clears the list. So, the searches in one database are, your results there are likely going to be different from your searches in a different database. So we don't attempt to show them across different databases that way. So if I open a different database, if I have more than one database, it's going to clear the list. Another thing is the search results are only good for this session. So if I exit and I start again, you're starting again. Because one thing we really don't want to get into at this point, I mean, honestly, it's just, at that point, you're really getting into over-design of a feature. It's not meant to be like your web history. It's like, you remember 6 months ago when I was doing that search for Randy Stradley? No, that's not the use case. The use case is convenience. It's not meant to remember everything you've ever done in time. So as soon as you exit the program, as soon as you close the database, that list is wiped and you're starting fresh on the next one. So those are definitely the design limits of things. Now, again, if anyone has a sensible use case of why it would be super useful for folks to have it maintain it for longer, and if is a use case that strikes us as being a general case that a lot of people would benefit from, then maybe the extra complexity of doing that, both from our standpoint and also from an interface standpoint, maybe that's a good trade-off. But for right now, we very much wanted to make it so that it was just a nice, simple feature. It lets me bounce back and forth while I'm in a particular workflow, and we didn't gum it up with a bunch of extra stuff. So that was our plan. All right. So let's see here. Okay, and then Steve was answering some questions over there. The only thing I don't love I feel like I've got this multi-computer workflow situation largely worked out. The only thing I don't like is having to bounce back and forth between screens and then have to swap the keyboards separately. I'll have to work that one at some point. Let's see here. Some fine points about that. Okay. And the question, how many tile searches does the history button hold both forward and back? I believe the limit's 40. It might be 50. I'd have to look up the exact one. I think originally we'd made it 20, and then we had someone came up with a good case as to why it should be a little bit longer. It's not. Again, there's no reason we couldn't make it 500, except that you'd be scrolling all day, and searching through a big scrolling list isn't a great deal of fun. So that seemed like a good number, and so I think that's where we went with for now. But if you guys have thoughts, please share them. We would love to hear from you. All right. Let me see. I'm going to take, I think, one or two more, and then I think we'll push on. Okay. Okay. Yeah. These are good ones here. Okay, getting report of comic books in a particular box. For some reason, this became a very popular question this last week. All right, so here's a demo of this one. Let's just go ahead and swap over to the demo PC. Okay, so let's say I wanted to go ahead and I want to use one of my custom fields over here that I've got in the Pro or the Archive editions. And I want to have a box number. So what I would do is I say setup, I go to custom fields, and I'm going to dedicate custom field number 1 to be box. All right. So then as soon as I do that, I get out of here, and let's go ahead and make sure that I show the box number on my columns and put it in a nice convenient place for me to work with. So you'll notice that I've got my custom checks down here, my custom dates, and then custom fields 2, 3, 4, and also this new one called box. All right. So let's say I want to see this one, and furthermore, let's move it up up the line a little bit so that I can, you know, see a little bit more conveniently for the purpose of this demo. All right, so let's move it over there. Good enough. All right, so now you'll see that I've got a box number just appeared here right in between a writer and artist, so good enough. All right, so now I'm going to say, all right, let's put a box number in a few things. There's box 2, there's some more box 2s. I'll put some box 3s, some box 1s, 3, another 2, 1. All right, so now I've got a variety of comic books in a variety of boxes now. All right, so the way I would do this stuff now, realistically, I wouldn't actually add my comics to boxes like that. I'd probably do them in batches and then use quick change and set okay, everything I just added goes in box 23. But for the purposes of this demo, let's go ahead and show how you would look up everything that's in box 2. All right, so what I'm going to do is you can either go Control F, or you can say Find Other, or you can just click this guy right over here, the Find button, and let's go to our general find. All right, as opposed to the quick find that's built right into the main screen. And let's say I'm going to go down to my item fields, and I'm going to go to box, and I'm going to say box is, and let's just say 2, and find. All right, and so here's everything that was in box 2, and there were 5 of them that I managed to splatter in there. Okay, so let's say, all right, that's great. Here's a list of everything in box 2, but let's say I want to report to this one. Easy enough. All I got to do once I've done that is right-click and say I would like a quick report of everything that's on the screen right now. And what quick report does, it gives you a just nice basic report with totals, everything in the list. And so here it is, everything, whose box is number 2. There were 5 of them, and there, I didn't say any quantity for each of these, so as a result, none of them have quantities or values. But if I had actually put a quantity in there as well as saying there in box 2, then this report would make more sense. But anyway, so I could then print this report out, stick it in the box, use it as a cycle count sheet, whatever I want, so forth. Now, my standard gripe about this applies. You might well ask, why isn't box a standard field in the program? Why, I mean, you certainly can use the notes field for it as a standard thing, but we have all these custom fields for things that we don't know what you want to use them for. But we certainly could have just defined just right out of the box. No pun intended, because custom field number 1, it's really your box number. Not a huge fan of filing things and noting boxes on them. If you guys remember the show of time-saving tips for comics a few shows back, went into a fair amount of detail about how unless your use case is, I'm going to file my comic books away and never retrieve them again. I'm never going to touch them. I'm never going to pull them out. I'm never going to sell them. That you're actually going to save yourself a ton of time if you actually just store and use your comics in some kind of physical order. So in other words, all your A's are together, all your Spider-Men are together, all your however you do it, but that their physical placement ought to match some kind of logical placement. For instance, I've got almost 56,000 comic books in my collection, and they're all in alphabetical order, and then within that they're sorted by title and then by issue number within the title. Now, it requires some trade-offs, obviously. It's longer to file the first one. It's infinitely faster to retrieve them. And that includes, you can have kind of a halfway step of that, which is to say, hey, look, I'm going to put them in whatever order they're in, but as I go new things, I'll note that these are all in box number 183. At that point, that's better than certainly looking through all your collection looking for those random comic books. I only need to find box 183 and look for them for the whole thing. But if I don't know the order within a box of how things are stored, then that means on average in a long box that holds about 200 comic books, it means I'm going to look through 100 comics in that, even once I know what box it's in order to lay my hands on any particular comic book. Whereas if you store your entire comic, collection in order, then you only look into order log 2 of that, which just means by the time you've touched 7 comic books, you're guaranteed to have found any comic within a given box if you knew that it was sorted in sorted order to start with. Anyway, if you guys are interested in that whole thing and other controversial tips, I believe we've covered this in live stream about either are the one we do right around New Year's Day of tips for organizing your comic books, or in the controversial time saving tips. But anyway, maybe we did in both. I don't remember anymore. All right. Moving on. Let's see here. Oro says, "Is box field alphanumeric or numeric only, please?" Yes, all the custom fields are alphanumeric. So if you do want to make the numbers, if you want to make sure that they have the same property of being greater than and less than, when you're talking about, like for instance, you might want to say, hey, show me all the things that are in boxes after 50, right? Well, because it's an alphanumeric field, not a numeric field, you want to make sure that you're talking about, um, like if I knew it was a number, I could talk about, well, 51 is greater than 50, and 100 is greater than 50. If I'm thinking about it as characters, like letters in the alphabet, and that's the kind of field that we're really talking about when we're talking about custom fields, then one is a lower alphabetic number than five. So 100 is in 100 is lower than 50, which doesn't make numeric sense. It makes alphabetic sense. So just remember that this is how that stuff is stored. So if you do want to use a custom field for things like box numbers, good idea to force it as like a 2 or 3 digit number right from the start. So say that this is in box 050 or 023 or 083 or something like that, versus box 183. If you do that right from the start, then all the numeric properties and the alphanumeric properties match, and then you can if you're finding things in box 23, it won't also find things, if you say box contains 23 or is 23, you're not, there's no confusion about box 223 or 123 or whatever else. So I'd say, yeah, there's a little tip for that if you do want to keep a box number. So anyway, that's what that is. Okay, let me see. Oh yeah, last tip I want to hit for today, and that is some people saying, "What does it mean when it says the database is locked?" And you might occasionally get this one. We actually built this error message out a bit in ComicBase 2024 to give you a bit more explanation of that if it happens to you. So ComicBase is built on a database platform called SQLite, and it is wonderful. It's fast. It does the job very, very well. It has one significant limitation, in that it doesn't really support multi-use of the database at the same time. So it's difficult to put it on, say, a network share and have two people hit the database at the same time, which would exceed your ComicBase license anyway. But it's not a bad feature for a database in general. Anyway, the problem is that only one person can be writing to the database at once. Otherwise, the database doesn't know whose changes are meant to kick in. So if you've got the database open and another guy's got the database open, and we're both trying to write something, the way SQLite works is that it locks the entire database, and it says like, hey, if I'm this guy's writing, the other guy cannot change a thing. He can't just not change a different record. He can't change anything in that database while the other guy's writing to it. And so that's the way that works. Other databases that have more involved schemes of multi-access use, number one, typically are much more complicated. I mean, like, to both to install and to manage, and costly, and often much slower and so forth. But so again, this one felt like it was a good trade-off to be able to make. But other places, I mean, if you were working in a database environment that was very much set up for multi-user use, then, for instance, if you weren't editing the exact same field at the same time, you might not get a database lock message. But if you do get a database lock message, all it really means is someone else has got the database open and is trying to write to it at the same time you are, so you're not allowed to. Well, okay, you say, but wait, I'm the only guy on this computer. Who's got it open? And the answer is another program. So it's one of the things is, if, say, Sidekick is updating your database at the very time that you open up ComicBase and try working with it, if it's still in the middle of an update, you're going to get a lock message. ComicBase tries to head this off in that it doesn't, if Sidekick, if you've got ComicBase open, Sidekick won't even allow you to hit the functions that do updates. And also, for instance, it won't start something that if it knows that ComicBase is open. But if it's in the middle of, say, doing an update and then you open ComicBase, well, we've passed the point where we did the check for ComicBase being open, and so you could get into a position where you're maybe in contention just with yourself. If ComicBase is right in the middle of updating and you start doing things in ComicBase, then you might see a lock message. But you'll also see these days a message that says, "Hey, other programs using the thing. It might be Sidekick. Just wait until the other thing's done before you exit." And also the other things that might be often, it could be your backup software and it could be your antivirus or your security scan software. So, but at the end of the day, it all amounts to the same thing. It means somebody else has got the database open and is trying to write to it at the same time you are. And so basically, either wait for it, let the other program finish, quit the other program. And if all else fails, you really don't know what's going on, restart your machine. That it's like restarting fixes darn near everything, but one thing it does do is it shuts down everything. So it should get rid of your locked message. If you get a locked message after that, then it typically means something different. It means that you're actually on a piece of what's called locked media, like you've written it to a place where you're not allowed to write to. That's much more specialized, much less frequent. But typically, all database lock means is that you've got ComicBase open from two different places, and you can't do that at once. It's just one guy at a time. All right, that's about it for me. Let's see here. And just this is Dagnabbit. Never thought about numbering my boxes that way, but workaround works fine. Cool. All right, so I think that'll do for me. We wanted to remind everybody, please, our standard 3 announcements. Please like and subscribe to the podcast. We love, pass on the word, let people know. Definitely helps. And this has been a really nice way for us to pass down just different knowledge about the program. Also, we have a dedicated thread on the ComicBase message boards where you can request live stream topics and demos. Do not forget about ComicBase After Dark on Thursday. If you'd like an invite to take part in it, we would encourage everyone. And please send that out. I'll give it to you one more time, which is send a note to pbickford. Let me close the Chiron. pbickford at human-computing.com. And I will send you a link to the live stream as soon as I set it up. I'll be setting up the After Dark thing probably about 8 o'clock tonight. That's just because Rumble won't let me schedule more than 24 hours in advance. So it will be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock Central, until whenever we get tired of talking. And they're usually a great deal of fun. I really enjoyed it. It's just nice talking with y'all, just candidly and just hanging out. So I hope to see as many as you can there, and just really looking forward to it. And finally, I want to pimp for Andre here. He has on the ComicBase message boards is a thread where you can get to the torrent for his world famous ComicBase cover catalog. And I think that will do it. All right, guys. ComicBase After Dark tomorrow night. We'll see you there. And take care. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye. Close the Chiron. All right. Bye, guys.